How's it going, my camping friends? This video is going to be on 20 plus towing tips so you can get to where you're going safely. Now, these tips are not going to be in really any particular order. Hope these tips help you out. My first tip is make sure you know how much you can tow with your truck. That doesn't mean to max out your truck, especially if you've never towed anything large down the road. Towing a boat or towing a small trailer is a lot different than towing a big camper. Also, make sure your truck can stop your camper. Towing your camper is one thing. Stopping 7,000 or 10,000 pounds behind you is another thing. My next tip is going to be do a pre-trip inspection before you leave for any trip. And along with you doing a pre-trip inspection, you should also have your passenger walk around and do an inspection also. That way, just in case you miss something, your passenger or your wife or girlfriend or husband, whoever else is coming with you, can do a pre-trip inspection. Maybe even an older kid if you have an older kid that's going camping with you. Let me take you around and show you a few things that I like to check before I start rolling down the road. I like to come back and check my plug. This is where you're going to get your lights and your brakes on your trailer, so you got to make sure this is all in. You can see there's a little catch right there on my plug. It catches on my cap. So you want to make sure that's all the way in and it's behind that catch. Make sure you got your chains on. Make sure they're crossed. Make sure this pin is in. You definitely don't want this to come out going down the road. Make sure you got a pin in on your ball catch, and that's forward. Make sure your distribution bars are hooked up correctly and you got these pins in so your distribution bars don't come down while driving down the road. Make sure you got your jack all the way up. I make sure my jack is up just above my distribution bars on my distribution hitch. And if you're going on a long trip and it's going to be windy, you might want to make sure you got your friction sway control on. This helps my camper from swaying back and forth if I get hit by a big gust of wind or if a big truck goes by me. And it's just like a brake in there. At least this is how my distribution system works. Some of them work different. Some of them have just a solid bar coming back here and laying on top of a piece of metal right here. And that's pretty much the same thing as how this works. Make sure you got your emergency brake cable wire hooked up. And continue walking around your truck. Make sure your side lights are working, especially if you're going to be driving at night. And if you're getting ready to go tow down the road, make sure you remove your chalk blocks. Trust me, I've ran over quite a few of these in the Army. Thank God I never run my own over. Make sure your caps are all on your dump station here. And all the valves are in. Gonna want to check your turn signals. You may want to get somebody in your truck to turn your left and right turn signal on and push on the brakes. Before you go on a big trip, make sure you check your air pressure in your spare tire. Make sure your cover's on good. Make sure all your stabilizer jacks are up. Another light coming around. You may want to check your tire pressure. My camper calls for 50 pounds of pressure in each tire. You definitely don't want to be driving down the road with not enough tire pressure in. You could blow a tire. And you don't want any make sure your tires are not developing a bunch of cracks on them. Make sure this is an ST tire. These will work for campers. You can't have a LT tire. That would be for a light truck. They have different sidewalls. There's videos online to explain more about tires. While you're walking around your camper, also check all your doors are locked. You can lock this. I normally lock both of these so my door does not fly open. Make sure your steps are up. Another stabilizer jack, make sure that's up. Another light. I normally lock these also. Lights on my truck. Check your tire pressure on your truck also. Make sure you have your tow mirrors out or you have your tow mirrors on. You may want to even check the oil in your truck. My next tip is going to be on your mirrors. While driving down the road, always scan your mirrors. You're all going to want to always be trying to look back and forth from one mirror to the other. That way, just in case of an emergency and you got to quickly move, you have a little better chance of not getting in an accident. I also scan my gauges just to make sure nothing's heating up on my truck. I know my truck runs normal. All my gauges will be pointing right to the center of each one of these gauges. Well, except for my wonderful fuel gauge. That goes down pretty quick while driving down the road pulling a camper. My next tip is going to be to distribute your weight evenly in your camper and in your truck. Make sure you don't have a lot of weight in the back of your camper, or that could contribute to you having a lot of sway going down the highway. You ever see the truck? I don't know if it's kind of scary if you ever see a truck or a truck pulling a camper in front of you and they start going down the highway like this. If that ever does happen to you, just let off your gas, try to stay calm, and try to engage your camper brakes manually. Don't let off the gas and slam the brakes on. Don't slam the gas pedal on to try to speed up. Down here, this is where my brakes are hooked up for my camper. I can push that over, and that will manually put my brakes on. Now your brake controller may be different, so make sure you know how to manually engage your brakes. I've never had to do that, so don't let that scare you. I just want to let you know what to do if that ever happens. Also, don't be towing down the road pulling a lot more weight than you have to. Like if you want to put water in your water tank and you're driving to somewhere way far away to go camping, try to wait till maybe you get there to fill up your water tank. Water is 8.3 pounds per gallon. So if you fill your water tank up completely, you're going to have a lot of extra weight in your camper. Also, while towing, with that weight distribution hitch, when you turn to the left or turn to the right, you may hear a lot of creaking and cracking. That's normal. My next tip is going to be on long trips. If you're going on a long trip, make sure you get a good night's rest. Make sure you're not tired. And make sure you pull over once in a while at rest areas. Do another inspection. Do a walk-around inspection just like you did your pre-trip inspection. Make sure all your chains are still hooked up. Make sure nothing broke. Make sure your tires still look okay. And one extra thing you may want to do if you're pulling over, if you're doing a long trip, is to check the hubs of your trailer so none of your bearings go out. You can get a little temperature gauge like this. It's an infrared thermometer. You're just going to want to point this at the hub of each tire, and if one of them is way hotter than the other one, you may have a bearing going out. Let me show you. So I'm going to go around, point this little laser pointer right at the same spot on each one of these. Mine are cold because I'm sitting in my driveway. Just like that. Do all 4 tires. Another tip when towing your camper down the road, make sure you know the width and height of your trailer. Definitely the height of your trailer. My camper, all the way to the top of my air conditioner, is right around 11 foot. It's a little bit under 11 foot. I just remember 11 foot tall. You don't want to go under a bridge somewhere and rip your entire air conditioner off, or it's going to make for a bad camping trip. Another tip I got for you, if you're going on a long trip and you're going to be pulling over to get gas, make sure you plan that ahead of time. You don't want to be pulling into some really rinky-dink little tiny gas station with, say, like a 28-foot camper, or you may get stuck in there, or you may end up having to back out of that gas station, or maybe you won't even fit into it. My next tip is on lane changes. While driving down the highway, do your lane changes slowly. Going from the driving lane to the passing lane is a little bit easier than going from the passing lane to the driving lane. And make sure you use your passenger to help you out so you ain't pulling over and smacking into somebody. But if you do that slowly, that way if you do start to pull over and there's somebody there, you'll have a chance for them to honk their horn at you so you don't run into them. And hills. Going down hills or going down steep mountains. Before you start going down a really steep grade, you may want to downshift your truck so the engine will help keep that camper from pushing you down that hill. And towing your camper up hills, you may need to put your 4-ways on if you start really slowing down because it's a really steep upgrade. I think the law is if you start going 15 to 20 miles below the speed limit, you have to have your 4-ways on. Put that down in the comments also if you definitely know that law. I looked it up and that's what I come up with. 15 to 20 miles under the speed limit, you have to have your 4-ways on. Now stopping at stop signs and stoplights. Your left turns will not be too hard, but a right turn, have you ever seen my truck makes wide right turns? It's going to be the same thing when you're pulling a camper. Especially if you have like a 28-foot camper or longer, your right turns are going to be a real wide turn. Instead of driving straight and turning right away, you might have to pull out a little bit, make it a big wide right turn. When I'm turning right in this truck, I like to look out my passenger side mirror, and I like to be able to see my tires when I'm taking a right turn. If you know them tires are going to get around that turn, you should be good to go. Also, you got to watch for your tail. They call it tail swing. Behind your rear axle of your camper, that back end of your camper is called tail swing. So if I'm turning right, the back of my trailer or the back of my camper could hit something. So if you have a real long tail end of your camper behind that axle, that is going to swing out a little wider when you go to it's going to swing out to the left when you're going right. And if you're going left, it's going to swing out to the right. So you don't want to run that into a stop sign like if you're going left. I've never had that happen, but it can happen. I used to drive buses in the Army, and it was a lot worse on a bus, but you still got to think about that in your camper. Another tip is try not to drive during rush hour. It's a lot easier towing later at night or when it's not rush hour. My next tip is, while driving down the road, I would suggest not to speed. Now, if the speed limit's 55, everybody likes to go 60. I understand that. But if the speed limit is 65, I like to just drive 65. Plus, it saves on your gas a little bit. Towing your big camper down the road really burns up a lot of gas. And if you're trying to go 70, 75 miles an hour, you're going to burn up a lot more gas, and you're going to have a lot bigger chance of blowing a tire. The tires on these campers are only rated for a certain speed. You may want to try to look up your tires and see what the speed is rated on them tires. Some of them are as low as 65. Another tip I got, if you're going to be doing a lot of long trips and going camping far away, is for your passenger to try to get some time behind the wheel. So if you're taking your wife or girlfriend or your husband with you, make sure both of you guys can drive that truck. At least it's somewhere where it's not real busy. That's where you're going to want to practice also, is somewhere where you don't have a lot of traffic. You could also just pull your camper to a mall parking lot somewhere. Maybe do a little practice and driving around with that. Practice driving around things. And take your time so you don't wreck your camper in the mall parking lot. Most of the malls around me look like ghost towns nowadays, so I don't know what the malls look like near you. Put that down in the comments if you have any malls around you that actually have stores in them. I walked in one the other day and I think there was 2 stores left in the entire mall. Pretty sad. Alright, happy camping. I hope this video helped you out. Put a comment down below if you have another towing tip. Help support my channel by hitting that subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up if this helped you out. God bless and have a great day.